story. Hi everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to video number 2 on the transparency series. This is the debt. If you have not seen video 1, then you want to go back and watch video number 1. Again, this is video number 2. We're going to dive into the history of the debt. Where we left off from the last video was we were looking at these two charts, and this was talking about the debt as a whole and how much we've paid and have not paid. So pretend this is your credit card bill and you have some debt here. In this case, it was rolled in the 2010s. This was old debt from 1990 to 2000s, and we're paying, we've paid this much down, so about $20 million, and then the rest we're still paying for. And then this is a new debt that was issued in the 2010s, and again, we've just barely skimmed the surface there, and we still have all this unpaid debt. So let's go ahead and jump right into this into the video. Okay, so on this chart we have two things going on. We have the tax rate up here by this shown by this yellow line, and then we have these mayors color coded, and this is the amount of debt, and you can see the increases or the decreases as the years went by. Now there's a disclaimer I know Jonathan wants to share with everybody. Go ahead.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Jonathan. By the way. No, it's okay. Yeah. But you know, what we're looking at here is debt by year, whereas the Brownsville has a certain fiscal year or financial year, and that doesn't necessarily align with the commissions and the commissioners and the mayors. So although we put the mayors and color coded the bars for this, there is a little bit of a difference as you look from a crossover from one mayor to the next.
Right.
So we're not trying to make any conclusions about a particular mayor or bias anybody in any one particular direction. We're really just trying to create a graphic that shows the total debt and then who was the leader of the commission at that point.
Exactly. And I think a lot of times, we remember what was going on in the city based on who the mayor was. And so this makes it a lot easier. It's like 2008, who was mayor back then? And as soon as we tell you that, oh yeah, that was Pat. Okay, sure, no problem. So that's what that is. Now we're looking at this, and if you need to pause the video so that you can study this, great. On the right side, this is the tax rate. As you can see, back in 2003, the tax rate was just below 0.7 or 7%, and then it went down. Pat Almada talks about his lowering the tax rate, and then it comes back up to the current tax rate as we have it. So that's what we're looking at there. And then again, through the color coded, we started in 2003 with Blanca Vela. Her debt that she had was just over $100 million. The following year, Eddie Trevino, and it increased by, I don't know, maybe $3-4 million right there.
Yeah, it looks more like about 10, but yeah, a little bit less than 10 maybe, so 5 to 10,
okay,
something
so
like that.
Going from here to there. So you're looking at these mini increases. You're not looking at the bar as a whole. That's just a mini increase from here up. And then from here, you're looking at the decrease down, and so on and so forth. Okay? Any conclusions or anything you'd like to
Well,
share?
if there's an increase, it means that the city's net debt that they took out, so what they paid off versus what they took out as new debt increased. If there's a decrease in the bar, it means that the city paid off more debt than they took out in that particular year.
Exactly. So there you go. Right here, it kind of remains flat. And then, Tony Martinez through his 8 years. And this is obviously the last budget. Now, to look at these again, you'd have to go back quite a few budgets to be able to do this kind of study. But it's a good overview of kind of what the debt was looking like. And you kind of see the rises and the falls of it. With Tony Martinez here, we're remaining somewhat flat. And, there's some conclusions we can draw from here. Just like with the fertilizer analogy, right? You can have too much fertilizer, or if you have too much fertilizer, maybe you get too happy, spend happy over here, then it lowers or it diminishes your ability to be able to take out debt in the future, and therefore then you maybe start seeing that you can't get things done that you would like to because you've got too much, historical debt, and so on and so forth.
Right. So debt is a balance, like we talked about in the first video, is that you want to be able to utilize it to be able to take advantage and grow your financials. But if you get too little debt, that's probably not good. Too much debt, that's probably not good. You want to be able to find that perfect medium, like fertilizing a plant. You want to be able to get it exactly right.
Exactly. So now we're going to look at the next slide, which is the debt issued as mayor. As here before, we were kind of looking at these little increments up or down as to what was getting taken out versus what was being paid off. Now we're looking at debt as a whole. In this graph or this chart, you're looking, this is a total amount of debt, in this case 15 million. You have to look at this one independently of that one. So basically, you're adding them all up. If you were to take all of these bar charts and add it up, you'd end up with the amount of debt that we have currently, which was, or go ahead.
Yeah, you could sometimes say things more simplistically. I think that the one thing that I would just highlight is that in a given year, the debt that's issued or taken out is basically what each of these bars represents. So if we need a car, I'm going to go out and take out debt in that particular year. I'm going to have that reflected in that year.
Exactly. So we start with Pat Ahumada. We're going back to 1991, and then Henry Gonzalez, Blanca Vela, Eddie Trevino, Pat Ahumada again, and Tony Martinez. Again, not a criticism or a critique or an endorsement of any mayor. It's just what the numbers reflect. And so one of the things here that we were looking at is that, Pat Ahumada started with about 15 million. He eased up. Henry Gonzalez actually never broke $10 million in, as far as taking out debt. And there were 2 years here where he didn't even take out any debt. Is it possible to run a city without actually taking out debt?
Well, clearly it is. Maybe it's not ideal, like under fertilizing your plants, but ultimately it's possible.
Right, and in some cases, that might be what we need to do to start paying down some of the debt that we currently have. Now, if the question might be, well, if you're not taking debt, then how are we getting services and things paid for? Well, we're doing it through just the taxpayer, right? Because anytime we take out debt, someone's got to pay it, and that's the taxpayer. You and I have to pay this debt back. The commission gets to make the decisions as to whether we take out a loan or take out some debt, but at the end of the day, the undersigned or the co-signer is the taxpayer.
That's right.
Anything else you'd like to share on this chart?
Well, a few things actually. I think it's important to point out that Blanca, who we have in gray, is the first mayor that, at least within this time frame, that burst through the $10 million clip level or ceiling consistently for the first time, right? Mm-hmm. So there's kind of a new perspective as to debt, what level of debt is okay to take out at a particular year. And then that continued a little bit into Eddie Trevino. He did have 1 year where there wasn't any new debt issued, but basically we can see that there is a change in behavior starting with Blanca Vela. Right.
And then we look at Eddie Trevino. He kind of maintained a little bit of that standard. Again, he had 1 year in 2005 where he didn't, and then we broke again that ceiling, the $20 million ceiling in 2007 and 2008. And what was happening at that time period, Jonathan?
Well, as you guys probably remember, is the financial crisis was in 2008, 2009 time frame. Right before the financial crisis, which led to the financial crisis, there was a lot of loose money. We had mortgage-backed securities, and really across a lot of the country, there were a lot of quote-unquote easy money. And so I think that, and I wasn't present at the time, but my suspicion is that Brownsville got caught up in that easy money, and we basically took out quite a bit of debt in 2007 and 2008. We got caught in that financial crisis.
Right. And so then we had that drop, and then it continues, and then we steady ourselves back up there. And then with Tony Martinez, our current mayor, it kind of levels off. And he's only gotten up above the 20 million level, this one past year, or I guess it was 2017. But other than that, he stayed fairly low, even lower than Blanca Vela at the time. So this is a great snapshot. I mean, like I said, pause it, study it a little bit. Again, not an endorsement or a criticism, but just kind of an overview of how the mayors or the commissions have taken out debt over this time period since 1991. And so I guess bottom line is, when you vote for your commissioners, when you vote for your mayor, that's one of the things that we have to think about. We have to be vocal as citizens. Do we want more debt? And if we do, where are we going to put that debt? And if we don't, then what are we going to do in order to maximize that dollar, which is one of the things that I've been saying throughout the campaign. How do we need to maximize every dollar, because every one of those dollars, part of it is going to have to go to pay this debt. We don't get to use it all on whatever we want. And so the more debt we have, the less of that dollar that we have to spend on what we need today.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This slide, I think, hopefully shows a little bit of the mayoral personalities, how much of an appetite they had for debt, what they probably felt was good or bad or whatnot. You can tell, for example, in 2009 and 2010, that Pat really ratcheted back the debt. That might be partly because of the financial crisis, but the debt was increasing. If you go back and look at the prior slide, it did increase quite a bit. So the next series is going to be around the personalities. Now we're going to call it the mayoral personalities, but the reality is it's the personality of the commission, which the mayor was the head of at the time. Anything you want to say about that?
No, let's go ahead and move on to the next video. So meet us at the next one. If you haven't seen the first one, watch the first one. You know, obviously you probably have if you're watching this one, and then meet us in the next one, the third video. Thanks again for watching. Remember, election day is June 22nd. Early vote starts June 10th. Jessica Puente Bradshaw for Commissioner at Large A. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
I'm Jessica Puente Bradshaw. Election day is June 22nd. Vote for me to elevate Brownsville.